Okay, perfect.
So I know you're a fan of Charlie Manson.
I don't know if I say I don't know if fan is the right word, but
No.
I'm fascinated. I'm fascinated with him, and certainly some of the things he does and says.
Yeah, well, it's exactly what I got written on the screen. It's a fascination of rubbernecking. So I had to look into two things. I had to look into Charlie Manson because I only knew him really from the things you showed me and the things you said. I mean, I knew the name and I knew he was a serial killer, but beyond that, I really didn't know. And then I had to look into what rubbernecking was and why the fascination.
What does rubbernecking have to do with Charlie Manson? I mean, that was my first question.
Yeah, well, I kind of got it in order. There is a kind of resurgence that I mentioned the other day, crime drama at the moment, very popular on the digital downloads. So, you know, same with the serial killer and CSI and all the kind of TV programs all around crime thrillers and murders and serial killers. So anyway, kind of scoured around the internet, trying to find out about what he'd been up to and get a bit of context. It turns out, you know, he had terrible parents. I think he had a terrible childhood as well. I think his mother tried to get rid of him and put him in foster care or even tried to sell him, I think, at one point. She would pick up guys, you know, go down to the bar, pick up guys, and then in the cahoots with her husband, they'd rob them, bash them over the head, rob the money, and that was how they made their money.
Well, it's no surprise that someone like Charlie Manson probably had a fucked up childhood. I mean, let's just, you know, it's probably not coincidence that the majority of strippers probably had some fucked up daddy issues or fucked up childhood too. Do you know what I mean? It's just, you know, not to say that there's one-offs here and there, but for the most part. But how did they call him a serial killer? He never killed anyone.
Yeah, I guess maybe that's what I probably projecting onto it. That's how I knew him or knew of him, just as a serial killer. That's really all I knew. But turns out it's not quite so straightforward.
Yeah, he never murdered anybody. He's an extreme influencer. He's an Instagram influencer.
Yeah, turns out that's right. Yeah, I mean, he early on there was some indicators like a kind of psychopathic behaviour, which it's going to link up to rubbernecking, which is quite interesting. But he, you know, so the parents kind of set the social model for him, set the scale, and he also had this weird awareness of equity, in the sense that when he saw other children getting presents at Christmas and all their birthdays and whatnot, and he didn't, he sought to resolve the inequity by destroying their presents so that they didn't get any either. So there was this kind of weird awareness of equity and a sense to try and settle it, but rather than bring himself up, his solution was to reduce everybody.
Yeah, that never works.
No, but it was present. He had an IQ of 109, but it was generally
I don't believe
illiterate.
that. I don't believe that. His social IQ is fucking through the charts.
Well, it's a funny old thing about these IQ numbers, and it's take it with a pinch of salt. But I think the point about the IQ is that he was within, you know, a standard deviation of the average. You know, he's on the smart side, but not on the really, really smart side.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't even know where I would fall if I took that fucking stupid test. I think
I saw a couple.
Yeah, go ahead. You're probably 140.
No. I'm right on the edge of Mensa membership, 128.
Oh, okay, that's good.
I think
you're higher than that. I think that's bullshit.
Well, you know, you can practice for them and get better anyway. You can lift your IQ score.
Yeah, no question. I remember in like 5th grade, I think, or 6th grade, I saw. I think we did an IQ test. I want to say it was 109 or 117. 117, I think that's what it was. Yeah. 109, you just said 109. That's why it was in my head. But that's not. Yeah. I mean, I don't even know if I'm leaving that now. I do pretty good in tests, though. I'm a fucking good test taker.
Yeah.
I'm a guesser. I'm a good guesser, dude. I'm not kidding you. I used to joke through school and say I can get a 70 without even reading the questions. If I read the questions, I can get an 80 on any test without even fucking knowing the answers, just by guessing. And I really could. I could get like 75s and 80s just by guessing. But I would read the questions and didn't study anything. And then I would realize sometimes I'd read like 5 questions ahead and I go, oh, wait a minute, that's got to be the answer to question number 2, and go back and change it. Because all the answers are in there, and you know what I mean, the questions.
Right. Okay. So sometimes, you can use the feedback saying, well, if this was the answer and these are the possible set of answers to this question is similar to the other but different, there's a critical difference, that means that these can't be the set of answers that I'm looking for, therefore it must be these.
Yeah, I did that all, unconsciously. I never really, I just would sense it. I don't know. I consciously was probably doing it, but yeah. I hate fucking school, dude. I love learning. So there you go.
Yeah. So what Charlie Manson, I can't remember if there was anything in there about his school days, but I think it picks him up for one reason or other, ended up in jail early on. And this is where he really learned about how to manipulate people. He learned it from jail. He talked to the pimps. He learned how they did it, and he learned how to find easily manipulated women, vulnerable, and learned how to control them. And one of his favourite books at the time was How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, he's a fucking influencer. You know what I really find interesting about him is how, I mean, he's had his crazy moments and acting crazy. I think a lot of it wasn't, he was acting too, playing the part. I think, I don't know. There was something really fucking sharp about this guy. Like, this is going to sound fucking nuts, dude, but like, one thing that I'm pretty good at is when I meet people or talk to them, I'm usually good at sensing like greatness, something about someone. Most people, I can find something great about them. Do you know what I mean? And bring it out of them when I'm talking to them. And with Charlie Manson, he's got a lot of fucking greatness. There's just something about this charismatic. He's psycho, off the charts, but there's something enduring about him. And he's fucking smart. Some of the stuff he says, you take it the way they make him look crazy, and it fits that way. But if you take it how smart he really is about what the establishment, government, whatever the fuck you want to call it, is controlling people, and you take it in that context, and you're like, wow, this guy was a fucking head of his time, fucking visionary. But then you take everything to the extreme, right? And you have like Hitler, you have Charlie Manson. I mean, there's a lot of great things with Hitler you could model too. I mean, fuck. It's just when you have the misguided things, it can manifest into other areas. But there's no doubt that was a great man that did evil shit. But that was fucking, you don't get people to do that kind of shit without having some kind of greatness in you. You know what I mean? Or devil, whatever you want to call it. But there was something magical in that guy, because no one just listens to someone and decides to kill a whole race of people, or listens to people like Charlie Manson and no one murders for anyone else unless there's something fucking either psychologically fucked up, which in the case it is, or there's some magnetism in there too. Do you know what I mean? There's some greatness.
I don't know too much about Hitler specifically in WW2, but I do know that the contexts were a breeding ground for what happened. It wasn't just him in isolation. There was lots of other confluences that made it happen, enabled it happen, and then multiplied the magnitude and the concomitant result. It was a little bit similar, actually, reading through the Manson story. Originally went to prison for breaching a probation, and when he got out is when it all went to shit. Reading a lot about the context of the times, this is the 60s, when the shifting times in the zeitgeist, it's the summer of love, the Beatles, Rolling Stones, the Byrds, the Beach Boys. We've got the context of the Vietnam War and the violence and the backlash to violence. And then I think there was the Martin Luther King speech going on about we can't use violence as that provokes and justifies violent responses. And then there was lots of assassinations going on, I think, in American history at the time.
Yeah, so evil shit going on.
Yeah, and when people are scared, they're much more easily manipulated. And I think this, again, it's been one of my pet interests about all this woo-woo stuff. Why do people buy black salve, chelation therapy, Chinese medicine, colloidal silver, DHEA, homeopathy, and fucking essential oils? It's when people are scared, death's coming, they'll buy any recipe. When science has said we can't do anything for you, people get scared, of course, to go to anything extreme.
Well, the bottom line is we only do things for one reason, is to feel good. I mean, that's it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty much it. So people do things for some reason, and on some level they think they're going to feel better or avoid pain. I don't know. Yeah. I don't have a problem with people trying crazy shit. I think I think everything's crazy. I think that if someone can have knee surgery, the knee heals, and then another group of people can get opened up and sewn back up with no surgery done, and their knee heals, it just tells me that I don't give a fuck if it works or not. if I want it to work in my head, it's going to work. Like, that's just fucking crazy. That's how powerful the mind is. I don't know why people aren't focusing on that. I mean, this might sound crazy, but you can probably, if you really believed it and really was in tune with your mind, you could probably cure almost any disease just by thinking it. And that sounds fucking ridiculous, right? But like Bandler says, when he got diagnosed with something, they said, there's a 5% chance that you'll be okay, and 95% chance you're not going to be okay. He goes, oh, okay, I'll just be in the 5% then. And he says, well, the doctor says, well, you can't just decide. He goes, oh, too late. I already did. You should have told me beforehand. I was like, how do you explain shit like that?
Well, I think there's a lot to be said for psychological outlook towards it, because, stress is a big factor. And if you look at a chart like that and decide that you're in that 95% of doomed people, then it's going to change your outlook. It's going to say, yeah, well, why should I exercise because I'm doomed anyway? Why should I bother eating half sensibly because I'm in the doomed group anyway? Whereas if you say, you know what, no, I'm in that 5%, so yeah, I'm going to pay attention, I'm going to get out, I'm going to exercise, I'm going to not let it slide. And it might just be the difference that makes the difference, but it's better than kind of resigning yourself. Whether it actually has a measurable effect. Some diseases, it doesn't matter how much you get on your knees and pray or think hard, Ebola is going to be unforgiving. Doesn't care what you think, doesn't care what you believe.
I don't know. I don't know if I believe that. I'm talking about to the core, right? How can people take uppers and then think they're taking downers and they actually slow down and these things? And how can the opposite work? I think the mind is way more fucking powerful than we give it credit for. I don't know if I believe that. I mean, I get it. Like you can say, I don't care how much you believe you can fly. If you jump off a building, you're going to fall and die. Right. Like I get it. I mean, there's some absolutes. But when it comes to the body and the mind and chemicals, I mean, do thoughts create chemicals in our brain?
For sure.
Yeah, right?
Yeah,
does drugs create chemicals in our brain?
Yeah.
Does the mind know what's difference between what's real and what's vividly imagined, the unconscious? Does that know?
I don't know, I mean, yeah, I mean, you got to have some kind of system that says, that really did happen, or no, that was a dream. Because I think if we go around indistinguishing thoughts, memories and dreams from reality, we kind of have a weird experience. So I think there must be some way of tagging or sorting or
I don't know, dude. It's all our experience, right? It doesn't matter if it happened or if we think it happened. That's true to us, right? If you tell yourself a story enough, you actually believe it. You think that happened. That didn't happen, dude. Are you serious? Why do I remember it that way? You ever had someone say, are you serious? I could have sworn this happened. And they're like, no, dude, that never happened. In my whole head, the whole time, that's how it happened. And in my mind, it was true, right? So that's why I get so pissed with those truth and shit like that, because who gets truth?
I've been lining one up on truth, actually, to read about it. But, it might be... you may well remember it. You may well be totally convinced that it happened. But the state of mind and the level of conviction doesn't mean that it really did happen. You might have remembered it that way, and to you, it might absolutely be something that you're almost sure that you did. But maybe there's no accounting. I mean, memories proved to be notoriously unreliable.
Oh yeah, what was that book we were talking about? That was it wasn't you. I was reading a book. It was I can't remember the name of it. Fuck. It was really showing how bad our memories are. It was like really pointing it out. Like it was absurdly awful. And then it tried to. It had to do with like different biases too. And it was they tried to submit it in court, and they won't let it happen in court because it's so fucked up that we could never have like a fair trial because people's memories are so fucked up, and they kind of write it off. That like, well, we know it's not really true, but we have to have some kind of thing. I can't remember what the fuck book that was. Oh shit, I don't know, but it was.
It's true though. I mean, this is it. I mean, I just actually watched the Alex Jones deposition over the Sandy Hook thing, and the lawyer carrying out the deposition was awful. It was just he was going for a few good men moment, which never happens. And it was just awful. The questions, well, they weren't questions. They were really...
The attorney?
Yeah.
The attorney was doing that? Or?
Yeah, no, the attorney was awful. He was basically inviting Jones to sign his own confession.
It's weird.
It's really weird, yeah. I mean, I think something suspicious is going on with that. I'd even edge my bets and say that lawyer approached those people and said, I can bring a case and I'll get you a fast close. And he's gone in for it thinking Jones is a lunatic and misjudged it.
Oh, I don't know. I know that he's a big conspiracy guy and he thought that the whole thing was set up. And
yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, I have no idea. I don't follow that. I don't watch the news. I mean, come on. Like, there's so much shit that it's like no one asks questions. I mean, why is it not possible that some other crazy shit could happen? Improbable, you know what I mean? But like, who the fuck knows? I don't feel like you can trust many things. That you certainly can't trust the media. You certainly can't trust politicians to do what's right, or government to do what's always right for us. You know what I mean? It's like companies, businesses trying to fucking make a quick buck on everyone. It's hard to get honest fucking. You got fucking Alex Jones who's nuts trying to sell his own shit, his own conspiracy stuff. Everyone's got their own fucking thing. It's how do you fucking make sense of this crazy fucking world we're in? You know what I mean?
Yeah, read the science. That's where you got to go. And it's hard.
Even that. I told you how I feel about science, dude. Fucking science is the same shit to me,
Been down those rabbit holes.
Anyway, so Charlie Manson.
Yeah, he wanted to be a rock star. And there is some speculation that this is because he wanted to be liked. And the kind of psychopath, even psychopaths need a certain attachment to people. They have a certain wanting for belonging. So he realized that if he can control people, he could control how they approached him, and he could control his amount of interaction that he had, which would bring him comfort rather than leave it to other people to decide when they would come and visit him. If he controlled people, he would dictate when he was in their presence or when they were in his presence. But he knew early on, even in his 30s, he made a case to stay in jail. He kind of said, I'm not made for society. If you let me out, bad things are going to happen. But they didn't keep it in on that basis. So shortly after, because he had a certain, and again, there's some speculation that in prison, people are forced, his inmates are forced to be his friends. They can't get away, the kind of captive audience. So there was a suggestion of that was another thing that attracted him to that environment or made it better than being on the outside. So then he met the Beach Boys. He used his knowledge of how to find vulnerable women. He formed a harem. He'd lie to them, intimidate them, preach them, beat them, slowly brainwash them. He would figure them out, and then he'd give these tests to see who'd be easily manipulated. And then he used his harem to lure men in or other groups in, because I've got all my women come round, we'll have a good party. So it was a big selling point. And he'd bring a group of women with him to any dues or benefit gigs that he was going to. So it was, again, benefit to other people to have Charlie Manson around because he'd bring all these women in.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Compliance test, right?
Compliance
test. That's what
Yeah. Then in the 60s, it was in vogue to find a wise sage to follow. So you'd have this tight cadre or safety in this group. Again, in the backdrop of the violence of Vietnam War, perhaps, and the assassinations, the free love and the kind of counterculture revolution made, again, a kind of a fertile environment where gurus flourished. It wasn't that they were necessarily charismatic, they were, but also the context was ripe for them to take advantage. So it was kind of like a rock star, but without the rock.
Yeah, for sure.
And the way he would test people is people don't generally go in for violence, and we try and avoid actual threats or confrontation. But I think what Manson realized is that he could give people these tests, the compliance tests, and you could work out people whether they were going to fight, whether they're going to go to flight, or whether they're going to freeze, or whether they're going to appease. So these are kind of like 4 things that when I was doing some reading about Virginia Satir, she mentions these a lot: fight, flight, freeze, or appease. So if you want to find out if someone's an appeaser, you got to filter out the fight or flight people, because if they run away, you can't manipulate them. If they're going to fight you, it's just going to be a constant battle. So you want to filter them out. So how do you do that? Well, you be confrontational and ask, make big asks, do heavy favors, and say it in a threatening way. So if you make threats, people they're going to do the flight or flight, which leaves the people who freeze or appease.
Jesus.
All right. So this is where you come across as a lunatic or a maniac or a violent nutter. It repels those people who are going to fight and flight. It leaves the appeasers.
Well, marketing 101, right? I mean, that's
right. Yeah. Put people into the buckets. Yeah. Sort out your demographic buckets. So, and the other thing as well is it's very difficult to think straight when people issue threats of violence against you, because you go into that fight or flight mode and you kind of lose that rational cognition, because you go into that, the reptilian brain takes over. It's like the noise in the long grass. All you want to do is run, because if you stand there and listen a bit more and try and do an analysis of the kind of footprint vibrations, by the time you got your tools out to measure it all, you've been eaten. It's too late.
No shit.
And this is it. So he was always testing like that. Anyway, story goes, became a bit disillusioned with the music industry and the Beach Boys and all that. And so rather than being a rock star, he formed this cult, used a lot of LSD. He focused around the Beatles for some strange reason, and he became convinced, so the story goes, that there were certain words in a certain song that said something to him in a particular way, and he used that as the spark, or like the core of the religion or the core of the cult. That was the kernel, the mission. It kind of takes away kind of criticism, because if you say as a priest, I'm going to tell you how to live your life, people go, well, you're just a man. Who are you going to, why are you going to tell us? Whereas if a priest says, well, him upstairs, the great God Almighty himself told you, tells us that this is the way we should live our life, because it's God, you can't criticize. So he would just invoke third party. And so here he was invoking the third party of the Beatles with appeasers. So he's got this bunch of appeasers around saying, this is the mission. So again, it's cultivated this situation where you got appeasers who are looking for a wise sage in this culture of sages. And it's just one kind of piece of the puzzle falling into another piece that stacks this potentiality. It just wouldn't work today because no one's into gurus that big. Beatles, there's no group as big as the Beatles. It's just so fragmented.
Now
music industry.
Yeah, but now they have those fucking Instagram influences. Do you know what I mean? Like fucking, what's like young girl, Sutton Jenner, that's like the most, like the wealthiest, one of the wealthiest people, just from fucking Snapchat and Instagram or something crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny you say that, because I suppose to think about it, that they're not too far removed, because it is almost a cult, not quite a religion. Certainly, 80 million followers I think she's got. And yeah, I mean, they found...
How is that possible? How is that possible? I don't understand.
Oh, I don't know where they all are. I mean, what's the global populations? So it's got 1%.
7.7 billion?
Yeah. Has found a way to monetize identity, which is not far away from what a cult member does, is it? This is our identity. This is who we are. This is what we stand for. And you buy into that cult and you take on its identity. You take on its values. You take on its core beliefs. And somewhere along that way, strange things happen when people take on an identity. It seems to be quite a fundamental thing. And after a while, we start defending that identity and we get quite upset and angry when people challenge our very identity.
Yeah, I guess so. But it's just like, I don't understand how people, like, what is it about these people that make them want to follow? You know what I mean? Like the Charlie Manson is, it's almost maybe because I'm older, I don't know, and I'm maybe crazier, but I understand the attraction to, I can see something in Charlie Manson, right, that is captivating, right? And I probably haven't looked at those Instagram influences. I'm sure they have. I should probably actually do that, because there's got to be something there's greatness in them that's making all these people want to follow them. And I always like fascinated by, what is that? Why?
Well,
you know what I mean? Is it just because she wears a short dress and shows her ass off? I don't think so. It's got to be more than that. There's a lot of people that do that. You know what I mean?
There is. I mean, there's a lot more to it. I mean, the whole Kardashian marketing enterprise engine is taking 12, 15 years to get going. And I also looked into charisma, which we should probably do a podcast on as well, because I learned a little bit about charisma. Charisma isn't in the person. Charisma is in the audience. It's the opposite to what you think. It's the willingness of the audience to almost make a person charismatic. It's not that the person comes on stage and is charismatic. The charisma is in the audience, not the person performing. So in the same kind of sense, it's a willingness or a wantingness to belong, to create this cult, to have your own ideas and values vindicated by a leader who's going to be brave enough to go out there and kind of lead it. And
really?
Yeah, it is.
That doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense to me, though, right? It's like, is it the old tree falls in the woods and there's no one there, doesn't make a sound kind of thing?
A little bit like that. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we should probably do a separate one on it, because I read a couple of books on it. It's interesting breakdown, an interesting take. The kind of confluence of factors, again, you know, the social media, the low, high availability and low cost of these broadcasting stations. You know, what, 30, 40 years ago, how much would it have cost you to be able to broadcast to 100 million people? Well, you'd need a powerful TV distribution channel, and that's $100 million in anyone's money. Now you can do it for $200.
I know. It's crazy, right?
So that's one factor. Then she was, you know, the Kardashians were really in on the game. That was kind of like the formula, wasn't it? Do a sex tape, get popular, parlay it.
Well, they had a TV show too, so it's constant exposure too, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that certainly helps. It's like the repetition, being in front of people and creating that brand, which is themselves. You know, it's pretty fucking genius. I mean, people can hate on them and all, but that doesn't happen. That shit doesn't happen by accident. You know what I mean? Like,
no, it didn't.
So like that's where I think, man, if we could take some of this NLP modeling and see, like obviously there's no way in the world me or you would ever have the appeal of a little Jenner girl with the millennials and stuff like that, but we certainly could take some of the things and break it down that she's doing and utilize it in basic things we do. Do you know what I mean? And I'm sure it would make a huge impact.
Very possibly, but I think, again, you got to take the wider picture. The marketing engine behind it is large and extensive. A lot of the things that they do off camera as well, you know, they leverage both sides. So whilst they're, you know, on TV making their show, you know, oh, I went to some launch night the other night, they'll mention it in passing. But that launch night might, I think, like Shoe Dazzle got their initial kick from a Kardashian launch party, and Kardashians may even have put money into it to get it started. So they're actually seeding their own businesses that they're doing launch parties for, that they feature on their own show. I mean, it's just genius all around. The leverage they get is phenomenal. Yeah,
that's great.
It doesn't happen by accident. It's really well worked out marketing behind the scenes.
All right, so let's get back to Charlie Manson. Fucked up childhood, wanting love and significance, and getting that through controlling people. Yeah,
that's it. Again, Maslow's hierarchy of needs in its self-actualization and all that jazz and significance. And the cult starts to grow. But like any Ponzi scheme, and funny we're talking about the Kardashians, you know, they got the cash flow to support this ever-increasing empire. But he ran out of cash. It started to get too big for him to handle, and things started to implode. So he looked for fast ways to get cash. And at the time, the easiest way to get fast cash was to knock off a drug dealer. Manson threatened a drug dealer, and this drug dealer wasn't an appeaser, and kind of threatened to end Manson. And he went more, you know, psychotic than Manson went. And so Manson shot him, but he didn't kill him. And so, you know, this was the start of a downward spiral. And then I think there was another drug deal that, again, that tried to knock off a drug deal, and this one did go bad. And either Manson or the Manson family, as it was known, a member of it, actually killed somebody in that bad deal. And then the paranoia set in, because it's like, you know, when are the police going to come knocking? It's only a matter of time before someone finds out about it. There's all these people in the harem. Someone's going to have loose lips. So this is when paranoia and running out of cash, and you start to blame people, you look for fault, and it's all kind of imploding. So desperation for control again comes in. Got to control this situation. I think that was an overriding factor, that he still wanted to remain in control of this implosion. So there's some notion that if you're going to go out, might as well go out with a bang, because then at least I'm in control of it.
Yeah, the bank robber's motto, isn't it?
I guess, yeah. Yeah, if you're
I
going
don't know.
in for a pound, in for a penny, or in for a penny, in for a pound. I can never remember which way around that goes.
I've never heard that before.
Then the Tate murders. Was it Polanski's wife at the time, heavily pregnant? And for some strange reason, he was convinced a race war was coming. Again, there's some speculation that if he could start the race war, and it would be a big, violent, almost a country-level clash, then his small misdeeds, by comparison, would largely go unnoticed. So again, this sense of leveling the playing field of equity comes into it again.
Jesus Christ. I think he thought he was God, too, doing that. I think that's how he got his sense of power on some level. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah, so he's kind of moving the goalposts and trying to reset the level of acceptability by comparison of, kind of race war. As I say, his misdeeds would must be insignificant and no one would be looking. So I think these murders were done by the family, sent the family to do them, or convinced them to do them. And it was hinted that it was made to look like it was some racially aggravated attack, and he thought it'd spark. I don't know. It just seemed crazy to me. Very weird expectation of outcome, but not a lot happened. Almost the perfect crime. No one, because it was so out of left field, no one knew. No one really knew where to start looking.
I just don't understand, though.
That's what I mean. It's kind of like a loose connection to me as well, that it's very tenuous to expect that kind of outcome.
What goes on in someone's head, though? I can't comprehend. Like, why does he, why do he want to kill people? Do you know what I mean? Like, he doesn't get anything from it.
Well, no, but I think just from what I read, it was to try and start this race war so that he'd have the mask of...
He talks about the mask a lot, about masks and shit like that. I heard, yeah.
Yeah.
Fuck.
And so I think, in the midst of all this, they were doing burglaries or robberies or something, and eventually got the attention of the authorities, and the group got picked up because it was the same old people that kept getting involved, and I think one of them spilt the beans, or some people in the cult or harem became disillusioned, and eventually it leads back to Manson, and he goes to prison and gets the notoriety because of all these things that have happened. And then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy because films are made, books are written, and even last week there was a new film out at The Haunting of Sharon Tate, which is, by all accounts, an awful film, but it doesn't even tell the story of what actually happened. It tries to make it into some supernatural, beyond coincidence, weird, mystical, supernatural happening rather than unhinged gangster ordering killings.
Yeah. But he had, did he do, things with blood and sacrifices with them and all crazy sex fucking seances, or was that just to control them, to test compliance things, you think, or is it something else?
Yeah, I think so, but also probably gratification, like you say. The motivation in the end is to feel good, so I think there were lots of orgies, lots of drugs, lots of sex. So again, it's just like all these things, it's the sex, it's the drugs, it's the robbery, it's the murders, it's the jail time, it's just all outlier stuff. So we all have this fascination with an outlier, really, and it's a selection bias because they gave him the TV time, wrote about him in the paper, and one of the things is, like any other person with an IQ of 110, probably going to say the same things that Manson might have said, but people largely go unnoticed. Most people don't get on TV. Most people don't have a platform to say these things. But no, now, we have YouTubes and Twitter, but it's just flooded, so you don't stand out anymore. You just get lost in the noise. This is also problematic when reporting things like mass shootings and these, very disturbing events. The next mass shooter wants to outdo the last one, or else they'll just get lost in the noise. So there is a certain school of thought that says we shouldn't give these things mind, shouldn't give them attention, but, this is rubbernecking.
Yeah, fuck. So what did you learn from reading up on Manson and Virginia Satir? Maybe just talk about Manson for now. Anything that is actually that he actually did that might be actually useful for people that actually to use in a good way? Not
really. I mean, it was kind of like a bland matter of fact that I read through it and I thought, again, it's the circumstances that really made this happen. And what was interesting as well is a lot of people piled on to try and leverage him to their own ends. They would say things like, Charlie Manson, this is what happens when you don't have a God-fearing nation. Charlie Manson, this is what happens when you let the left or the right in. Or Charlie Manson, this is what happens when the man pushes too hard. Again, a lot of people try to piggyback the notoriety to make their own film, to sell their own books, to sell their own ideology. And we're off again with a new cult based on the old cult.
Jesus.
So whilst I was reading all this, I was reminded of like that, the weather balloon that crashed at Roswell. And it sparked a whole industry based on imagination, exaggeration, projection, prejudice, and wanting to make believe.
Yeah, that's fucking bananas, dude.
Used to get fan mail,
Charlie Manson did?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I used to get a lot of letters.
What do you think?
60,000 a year, I think. What the fuck what are people thinking?
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fucking nuts, dude. I mean, there is something fascinating about him. You know what I mean? It's like...
Yeah, I mean, this is it. Same old story, so people jump on this and they use the publicity to try and leverage their own bit. It's like the creationists who rebranded intelligent design. It's the same thing with woo-woo and flat earth and chakra and snake oil. And they used some platform for notoriety or current wave of interest that are manipulated and warped to their own ends. And really, it's a compliance test, so you put out this woo-woo. You're looking for the pleasers and appeasers, the quietly desperate, the gullible and vulnerable. So from one point of view, it looks like a wicked marketing exercise. From another, it's just ignorance wrapped around logical fallacies and lack of critical thinking of the woo peddler, wrapped with a thick dose of arrogance and denial. Very potent cocktail, full of potential disaster. And it reminds me of the simple risk model, where you have the potential event, a catalyst, and the concomitant result. And so there are kind of three awarenesses, stages, awareness of the potential of the event, the awareness of the catalysts and how that interacts with the events or the hazards, and then the actual outcome, whether it's significant or not. And at each different stage, there's different mitigation strategies. It's all interesting stuff. And so that's really kind of like see Charlie Manson like a personification or a concentration of that. And he did it a lot faster. And I wonder if it isn't the same kind of thing in business. They've often said that, corporate business is almost the epitome of a psychopath or sociopath, is that they get locked into this focus and they're constantly filtering out. I mean, this is what they say in marketing, isn't it? Polarize your audience, filter out, disqualify fast, and then focus on what remains. Top sales guys, I imagine they know what they're doing because they qualify in, qualify out. But it's really this same kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Human
fucking chess is what it is, I guess. Crazy stuff.
Yeah, and there's some...
Sorry, go ahead.
I'm going to say it's like a curiosity. Like we started off as a fascination. We all want to know. We all want to know how to have this kind of Charlie Manson power. We want the inside track on how to be charismatic, on how to have sex parties, how to get LSD and do drug deals and not get caught, and how to indulge our pleasures and gratifications without consequence. And kind of social background is like a cultivation, because we've got this thing at the moment of revenge movies, the myth of redemptive violence, which we could probably talk about that Walter Wink book, The Powers That Be, where it's a fascination just to do away with our enemies, which means that we don't have to change. We don't even have to enter dialogue if we can just make our enemies disappear.
Yeah, that's stupid. That's stupid. That
redemptive violence.
That doesn't even interest me. That stuff about Charlie Manson that interests me. It's not that I want to control people. It's not that I want to fucking have power over people at all. But it's how you can. I mean, that's how you can use it to get people to kill, or you can use it to get people to get past their bullshit. Do you know what I mean? And be happy and be fulfilled. I mean, they said that they couldn't even leave the guards in with Charlie Manson for too long because even just his eyes would hypnotize them. He'd be controlling them just by staring at them.
Yeah, I mean that sounds outrageous, and you want to know, but then is it really true?
I would believe it because Have you ever done that? Like, okay, so I'll give you an example. I remember when I was younger and I was in good shape, decent shape, not great shape, not like six pack abs or anything. But when I was 20 years old, 19, 20 years old, when you're that age, I don't know, I was fucking extremely confident, cocky. I could talk to a girl and my head be thinking something, and it would work all the time because I'd put myself in a good state and I'd think that this she wants me so bad it's ridiculous or something like that, and she's gonna want she's gonna grab my hand or something like that. And I'm looking at her like you, I know you want to fuck me, right? In my head, I'm saying that, and then these things kind of, that energy you put out there, they pick up on it unconsciously. So there's all kinds of shit that happens unconsciously. You know what I mean? You look at a girl and you just smile at her, and you could be like picturing whatever in your head, and it's gonna change how she reacts to you. If you're a creeper and you're picturing fucking her when you're talking to her, that's going to create a certain energy. If you're looking at her and you have some kind of thoughts like, oh, she's going to want me so bad or something like that, that's going to create another energy. Or you could look at her like, oh, she's disgusting, I want to get away from her. And just what you're thinking in your head is going to influence the whole interaction. There's no question. So when you
Yeah, I mean, I know you're really big on framing, and I think again, Oren Klaff talked about it, innit? When you frame yourself as the prize, if you hold that in your mind, it means that you don't beg, because that's just so the antithesis or incongruent with holding yourself as the prize. So whilst you hold that frame, it's impossible for you to almost say, please.
Yeah, it's a joke. There's zero neediness, right? So if I'm talking to, when I was 20 years old talking to a girl, I didn't give a fuck how hot she was or not hot. I looked at her with no neediness, like whatever, I don't give a fuck. You know what I mean? And she's lucky to be talking to me, right? This is, I mean, it was absolutely out of my mind. But that's the shit that worked for me, right? Like just being like, even when I play basketball, my friends would say, man, when you talk shit, like you think you can guard me? You can't even fucking, I'm going to go to my right now. And I want to tell you, and you're not going to be able to stop me. I want to fake left and then I'm going to go right. And I would do it. And I would I'm going to shoot it right over you right now. I'm going to shoot. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Shoot, jump. And I shoot right over him and nothing but net. And my friends are like, dude, no one can beat you when you're talking shit. When you stop talking, you don't play as good. They want me to always talk shit. Why? Because I was believing it. It's the confidence. It's the fucking speaking. Like Conor McGregor says, if you have the fucking balls to think it and to speak it into the world, then most people don't have the balls to say what they want to do, because what if they don't do it? They're gonna, you know what I mean? Yeah. So there's a lot of truth in that. Like,
well, I think so too. Yeah.
So it's no different when I worked at Apple and a customer would be pissed off and you almost like yelling, and I'm standing there and I'm looking at them, and in my head I'm picturing the same thing. I'm looking, I could fucking punch you right in the face right now and knock you the fuck out, and you can't do nothing about it. And I'm looking at them and they instantly lower their voice. And they instantly stop yelling. And they go from being so pissed off to being, it's just frustrating. Why? Well, because my energy. I came over there. I'm a big guy. I'm 6'5", right? I have a strong fucking presence, a strong fucking frame. And that influences things. So that's like, there's a lot of factors like that. So when Charlie Manson looks into someone's eyes and he's thinking, I want to control you, motherfucker, that's what's happening. And I have no doubts in my mind that that's really what's happening. Why? Because he believes it to be. And he's not just thinking something. He believes that to his core. And that's why, I have a shirt that says, what you think you become. And that's why I tell my son, be careful what you say to yourself, dude. Like, seriously, your language is important. Sometimes you say, oh, I'm never going to figure this out. And I fucking lose my mind, dude. With an attitude like that, no fucking way. No shit. You're saying the wrong things to yourself, right? How am I going to figure this out?
Yeah.
What haven't I done that might work? Ask better questions, right? So I don't know, man. I really believe that we are so much more powerful than we can even imagine. That if we could truly believe anything in our head, as crazy and audacious as it is, the chances of you achieving it, if you really believe it, I'm not talking about just doing affirmations. Affirmations don't work. People say in their head, I have $50 million in the bank. I have this. But they don't believe it. It's not saying it. I'm talking about like truly believing with every core of your being that, I'm a fucking going to be a billionaire or whatever it is. I'm going to be a fucking professional football player. But to really have that core belief inside, and that I don't give a fuck if I don't do it, I haven't figured out, I'm not going to stop. I'm not going to do it once and say, okay, I feel I'm not going to be this. That's not someone who believes. Someone says that I tried it. Oh, I did a video, I did this, and it didn't work. That's not someone who believes. That's someone just wants something.
Yeah.
And they maybe said, you know what I mean? But if you really want something, failure is not a fucking option. I'm going to do this, and it's going to happen. Yeah. And if you can have that level of certainty and belief, that influences what you think, what you do, what you become, and how you show up. So I don't know. I think when you say that Charlie Manson, could he really control people's minds? I say, fuck. If he believed he could, he did. And I really believe if you look into his eyes, there's some crazy darkness in there, and but there's something there's a vacuum in there too that sucks you in, and that's what he wants to do. That's because his goal was probably to control people.
Yeah, well,
and that's why he did it.
Well, this is where we are right now. We're perpetuating the myth. This is how it all gets started. I mean, I'm a skeptic, and I'd like to say all seeing is believing, and I'd like to have met him to found out, and here we are. So now I'm going to be one of those lunatics writing a fan mail to try and settle that meeting next thing. But I think you're absolutely spot on as well with the difference between someone who wants something or just writes it down on a wish list because it looks cool, and the difference between someone who's actually doing it. Who was it? Sales guy, famous sales guy. Was it Uri? Getting Past No, where there was a prize for the best salesman of the year was they'd get a new Cadillac, and the winner would be announced at Vegas. So the day of arrives and they still haven't announced who the winner is, and he gets a train ticket to Vegas, turns up on the night. Of course it's him because he's a hero and he won, and he gets a new car to drive home. And they say, well, what are you going to do with your return ticket? So, return ticket? You're joking. I bought a one-way ticket because I knew I'd be driving home.
Yeah. I mean, but that's what I'm talking about. There's been people, I don't know, I have a hard time believing this, but I've read this, and there's people that win lotteries, quite a few of them, and I have a hard time to believe that. But there's been certain people that they're selling a course on how to win a lottery. It's hilarious, but
yeah.
But that's what I'm talking about. That's the that's the burn the ships kind of thing, right? The Cortez thing, whatever it is.
Yeah.
I mean, when it's like Tony Robbins said, when you burn your boats, people that either survive or they'll die, they tend to survive. You know what I mean? If the death's on the line, they tend to be, resourceful, and they tend to be, whatever. Yeah, he says you never want to, in war, they say you never want to fight someone that doesn't have any options. It's either die or live.
But again, there's that market segregation. We were just talking there, about, are you the type that's easily influenced, or are you the type that fights or flights? The Cortez thing, which type are you? It's probably already pre-selected, or else you wouldn't have been on the boat in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, there's how little choice we actually have, right? It's like we think we have. Someone was, I don't know who said this, but someone says no such thing as free will, and I almost believe it now, because we're just predetermined of our thoughts, our actions, our past, our experiences, and we think we're making a choice in the moment, but it's already fucking predetermined based on what we've seen. You know what I mean? Isn't that? I don't know. What do you think?
Free will, yeah, it's complicated. I'd probably say we have some free will, but not as much as total free will. Yeah, kind of, it's a discussion to have. It's a long one, but I used to think we had free will, but kind of reaching the conclusion that for the most part, no, not really. Small bit.
Yeah, I was thinking that.
Small bit.
I was thinking the same thing. So is that a good book, Getting Past No? Or whatever the...
I think it's a bit dated now. From what I remember, yeah. I think it was Uri, Getting Past No. Is that who it is?
Yeah, William Uri.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know it was a pretty good book because he warned as well about, talking very much like Sandler about upfront contracts, and about all the times that he learned by making mistakes whereby he'd have his commission ripped off, so he'd do all this work, get a deal done, And then he'd be invited out of the boardroom whilst the two parties settled the technical matter, and they'd shake hands, do the deal, write a contract, and then disappear. So he'd always bake himself into the deal.
That's funny. That's smart.
Yeah. Yeah. So full of stories. It's got a wealth of experience in there.
All right, back to
yeah. So I was
going
to get into rubbernecking.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So people, seem prone to attend to emotional information, even when it's task irrelevant. So this is a classic case. Even in real life on the highways, drivers often slow down to view accidents on the other side of the road, even though it doesn't concern them, and though it doesn't hinder their driving activity. There's a kind of additional bias to emotional information induced as temporary inability to process stimuli. So there were some experiments done which try to reveal what they call trait harm avoidance. In other words, risk averseness, or that's that analogy of the long grass. How even close to the long grass are you prepared to get food? Because if the thing pounces, there's it has to close the distance quick. So it's not, you might not even get so close as to hear the rustle. You just prefer to stay away. And they've worked out or discovered that some people actually have very low harm avoidance, and some people are actually able to reduce that willingly. Those who have a higher level of harm avoidance are unable to do so. It's almost like hardwired, the jittery everything. They're anxious about everything. There's always the what if, and they see problems everywhere, they see danger everywhere. And it's very hard for them to get a grip and take control of that. Again, it can be used in marketing. The classic case where you go on Twitter, you have a little bit of a rage and you misspell things. And then, look at this lunatic having a rage. He can't even spell properly, and you retweet it to make him look like an idiot. But you've just doubled their audience because you didn't pay attention to the message. You were rubbernecking their spelling.
That's funny. Well, that's like, it's a great guy that did this marketing thing. And he said he was speaking at an event, and he basically was speaking the next day, and he came on for a couple minutes, and he said, he goes, I'm going to give my book out to anyone who wants it, and I want to pay $500 or $200 or $1,000. It was something, a lot of money, for the person who can find the most, mistakes, spelling mistakes, grammatical mistakes in the book. So then everyone's fucking taking the book, and they're fucking going through it, trying to find everything wrong with the book, right? And basically, it's so fucking brilliant. It's so brilliant. So he paid, they say $500, $1,000, doesn't matter. And he basically got a whole fucking shit ton of people to read his book and try to find stuff wrong with it. So they were devouring the book, reading, trying, and it was all sinking in. So it was all getting pre-framed so he could sell them shit the next day. And I was like, dude, that is so fucking brilliant. Like when someone started talking about the spelling corrections, like it went off in my brain. I was like, oh my God, everyone's going to read the book. Everyone's going to go through it several times, try to find more mistakes to try to win the $500. He just basically paid $500 to get hundreds of people to read his book. And then all he has to do is sell, if he sold his high ticket thing was, I don't know, $4 or $5 grand, whatever it was, maybe 10 grand. And he paid, $500, say, to get hundreds of people to read his book, to be pre-framed for the next day. Isn't that fucking crazy?
Yeah, it's clever. And, people don't see it. It's too subtle. But actually, that really ties in with the next bit, actually. I'm glad you mentioned that, because this experiment they did to try and work out what kind of people, or what people had this self-avoidance or harm avoidance tendency. They would show different groups of people a series of pictures, and they would show pictures of common objects but in a weird context, so that your expectations meant that you actually had to think about what you were looking at rather than just go, oh, that's a picture of so-and-so. So it'd be like a building but on its side. It'd be a car but upside down. It'd be a person with an umbrella but stood in it. Kind of everyday objects that are easy to detect, but just you see them in strange circumstance. And what they'd say is to say something like, okay, we're going to show you a series of images and we want you to pick out anything that's pink. And then they start showing these pictures of buildings and people and umbrellas, and sometimes someone would have a pink scarf on, or sometimes the building would be pink, or it'd be a pink flamingo. But what they'd do is they'd throw in a card that was a pretty gruesome picture of, horrible, displeasing, upsetting, potentially upsetting picture. And they found that if they placed this card, or this unpleasant card, 2 or 3 cards before the pink image, people would miss the pink image. They'd miss it. They wouldn't see it because they're still concentrating on the card from 2 or 3 ago. All right. And they found...
That's interesting.
Yeah,
That's
they
great.
found that there's a critical time difference of 800 milliseconds. So the grotesque picture and the pink picture that we're looking for has to happen within about a second. Now, think about your Bandler handshake interrupt.
Yeah.
Hello, pleased to meet you. There's the hand. It goes up to your face, sleep. How long does that take?
Not very long.
About a second. It's about the same kind of time frame that what's going on. And I haven't had time to rationalize and place that grotesque picture of 2 frames ago. I'm still thinking about it. I can't actually see pink at the moment because I'm still thinking about it.
Oh, yeah.
So the hand goes up. The hand isn't where I'd have expected it. What's going on? What's this on my face?
So is it like, it's the same principle, right? It's the same principle as like a confusion induction type of thing, right? Where you ask something and they go, huh? And then you can throw an embedded command in.
Right, exactly.
You know what I mean? Like,
and this comes back to Manson. Think about when he's issuing his violent ultimatums, people go into a panic, they can't think straight, and then he puts in his suggestion.
Wow.
Same induction.
Yeah, I mean, come to think of it, that's how most of them are, right? It's like, I remember I told you about the, the coffee shop that I was but the free refills. Remember that?
Yeah. No, I like that one.
Like I could have just said sit down. He would have sat down. Like there's no question. Yeah, that's interesting. That's awesome. I love that stuff, dude. I don't know. I like that stuff so much.
Yeah. So it reminded me a lot of these online debates that I keep going on about that I see this kind of technique played out, and I didn't realize it was going on. There's a technique of debate called Gish Gallop, and it goes something like this. Do you believe in God? Well, it's a good thing that you do, because lots of other people don't agree with that. Wouldn't you say that's true? And I'm glad you agree with me. But before you talk to me about your ideas, I just got another question for you. Let me just ask you, and whilst you were thinking about that, didn't it occur to you that this might be true as well? And before you even answer, let me tell you about this. All these questions come about that 800 millisecond or a second pause.
Oh,
It doesn't give a person time to think. They go into a fight or flight mode, and then they start getting mad and angry, and they lose their shit because they get frustrated, and they either go into an appeasement mode or they hang up and fuck off.
Wow. That's some deep level manipulation shit, right?
Yeah. I didn't realize that that's what they were doing. I mean, this is it. You talk about people who are charismatic or naturally persuasive. I mean, we know NLP models these kinds of excellent behaviors, or people who are like this. So they didn't invent it, but here's the model. So again, you're filtering out fight or flight, appease or please, and you give them a shit test, and it's about a second, and you watch how they react. And that's the window that you got to pay attention to, their immediate reaction. Are they still thinking about that photograph, or have they spotted the pink flamingo? Now you know what you're dealing with.
Wow, that's crazy. It made me think of the video with they ask you to count how many times the basketball is being passed, and then there's like a bear that walks by in the video, and most people don't even see it. Have you seen it?
Yeah. I saw that. Yeah, they showed that on one of the NLP trainings.
Yeah, it's crazy, right?
Yeah, and this is it. So we started off talking about how fallible memory was, and you don't even see it, so how can you remember it?
Yeah, that's just goes to, man. And then you take that stuff, and then with Bandler, with the nested loops and all the embedded analog markings of sentences buried in stories and commands buried in stories, and it's like a mind bender. You know what I mean? Like I thought about that one time to just tell. I wanted to just write a simple story, like, and then with a purpose, and then just basically like bold the words to analog mark. So I have like a couple sentences in there of commands. And how much of that stuff?
I know.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, embedded commands, analog marking, stage anchoring, firing of anchors, chaining of anchors. Yeah, it's all good stuff.
I got to get back into that stuff. I only learned a little bit, and then a lot of the stuff I do is probably, I don't even consciously think of it anymore. You know what I mean? I might just be matching predicates or not. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I mean, it's a perishable skill, I think, if you don't do it, but it comes back quick.
Yeah. My ears have always been pretty good. Like, I would catch things at the event that most people didn't, even at early things that say, some funny things with some ambiguities and stuff like that. Actually, I had a book a long time ago. I started writing a whole mess of them. If I get rid of that or not.
Oh, yeah, I really like the use of ambiguities as well, because it puts the mind into that pause mode. It's like, did he mean this or did he mean that? Am I looking at a pink flamingo or a gory picture? I can't tell anymore. And the mind just gets overloaded because it's trying to hold all these own possibilities that are unresolved, and it just overloads the conscious mind. And then you have to either give up and appease, or you're freaking me out. And I've done this with people as well, even just like some really mild expanded awareness stuff. They go into it and it's like, I can't handle it. What do you mean you can't handle it? It's just too, and they can't even handle the relaxation. And you get other people that want to go the other way.
Yeah, but here's the thing: like, sometimes you can sense these things, right? So when I went to the workshop, there was a guy there, an older guy, and a young kid. They were like messing with people and doing some pretty bad shit. I caught right away. It infuriated me. They were trying to manipulate people and just weird childish stuff, right? Like trying to install phobias in people and stuff like that. And oh my God, I almost fucking lost it, dude. I went off on this guy and this kid, and dude, I went into a rant and basically used the bandler, threatened them with impotence and other crazy shit. Oh, shit.
Yeah, well, that's the way to anchor bad behavior. I mean, this is as well, isn't it? Kind of classic anchoring in sales. Have you been anywhere else? Yeah, I went down the road. How come you didn't buy from them? Well, they're fucking awful. Anchor it.
Oh, yeah.
Because you anchor that, and then if during the conversation they're not convinced, you can say, well, I'll tell you what, look, I'd hate to see you go somewhere else. And have a bad time.
That's so great. I used to do that, right? Where people come in pissed off, and I'd say, I'd smile, and I'd say, you've been shopping, huh? Because you could see the energy, they're pissed off, they want to rip my face off, and I haven't even said anything to them yet. And they said, yeah, we just came from Sierra Honda, and they were terrible and this and that, and they're putting that picture on me. And I stand like a bullfighter, and I turn sideways, and I point to past me, and I say, I hate it when they do that, and I point off of me to somewhere else.
Yeah, that's a good one, that one. Yeah, John Grinder did that. He said, here's how to handle hecklers. And he said, insult me. So everyone in the room was saying, you're a codgy old man. And he'd step to one side and point to the space where he was and go, yes, he was, wasn't he? So he also threw it back into the past as well.
Great.
But someone picked up the ball and said, I hear that they say that Grinder is a grumpy old man.
That's funny, but auditory much?
Answering back in the same, complex equivalence, distortions, deletions, and generalizations. That was pretty taxing. So you're given a sentence in a particular construct of either a comparative, deletive, or lack of referential index, and you have to answer back using the same lack of referential index.
But, and they also say that you're an asshole. That's what I would say.
Yeah.
And they also tend to say a lot, don't they?
I'm not even going to argue that one.
Anyway, and then redirect fucking.
So yeah, I mean this thing again. I was reminded that they said that the extent to which participants can overcome their emotional blindness dependent on the level of harm avoidance. So I think people who worry about going into a trance are those easiest to put into a trance.
Yeah. I told you about one of my favorite stories when I went to Bandler. It was like day 4 or 5 or something, and you know, you always work with someone different, which is actually really cool. Because even me, I'm a people person, but I always even feel uncomfortable having to find someone new every time. This vulnerability to do that, right? And I was working with this girl, and she goes, "I just got to tell you that, you know, I can't go into a trance and I'm not hypnotizable." And I said, "Oh, good. I'm tired anyways." I said, how about we just do a relaxation exercise?" And she's like, "Okay." And then I just fucking told her to close her eyes and put her in a trance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it. Reframe it, call it something else, or move it to the preamble. And I think that's the great power of change work, is to put it in the preamble. Okay, I know you're nervous, and a lot of other people have been. But before we get started, just this one thing you need to know now. Take a deep breath.
That's awesome. I love that. I don't know why I love that stuff so much, you know. Yeah, like I remember when we got there and John Laval was speaking. He came out with his first speech, and it was like the first day. And I'm not sure if he talked first and then Bentley came on. I think that's what happened. And he ended up saying within the first few minutes, all generalizations are false. And I was the only one that laughed. I laughed out loud, and he says, "Well, someone has their ears tuned up."
Yeah. The classic. What's the other one? I can't go into a trance. Good. Do it. Anyway, you can now. Let's talk about something else.
Yeah, I don't want you. I don't want you to go into a trance now.
Yeah. All analogical markings, all the good ones, all the classics.
I don't know how much that stuff works. You know, I used to experiment with that at the car dealership before and say, you know, if we go off the test drive, as we stand here by the car, I point to the car, I want you to notice the wheels and look how, you know, look at this and that and the other. I don't know how much those things, you stack all those things. They're certainly fun for the person doing it, but I don't know how you can quantify that kind of shit, you know?
Yeah, it's. I think they're more like pointers or waymarks. That it's like the, you know, this experiment they're talking here with the cards. It's a test all the time to know what kind of person. Are they compliant? Are they a appeaser? Are they rejecting what I'm saying? Are my suggestions going in? And it just builds and builds and builds. So it's no one thing, but it just, like, I think you would agree, builds an attitude about this deal so that I've crafted it so that it's acceptable to you. So we tested at the start. You know, the one that the hypnotists do, you know, so sit in the chair, straight back, feet flat on the floor, hands on your lap. Doesn't make any difference as to how well you go into a trance, but it's a compliance test.
Yeah, you know what? I didn't even realize I did that.
Yeah, so
unconsciously.
Are you going to do what I tell you, basically, is what it's asking. And if not, we need to work a bit harder. Are you going to buy this car right now? All right, well, we need to work a bit harder. If you're going to buy it right now, I don't need to say any more. Yeah, and it's a test of how well you're doing with rapport as well, or it builds rapport after that. And I found as well that a lot in high tension, because again, you got this thing of threat or potential loss, is injecting a humor or making it okay to make the decision. You know, it's like even sometimes just saying the most ludicrous thing, like, you know, if you don't like the deal, come back next week, we'll give you all the money back and we'll write you a check for £1 million. Wink eye, just sign there. And it's like, oh yeah, all right, it's not such a big deal. But the idea of £1 million and this deal that's only 20 grand, again, it's you know, it's just a small thing all of a sudden because you've deep angered a large amount of money somewhere. It doesn't affect the deal, but it kind of changed its perception of it.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah,
but there's also getting rapport with people if you can speak what their fears are. Do you know what I mean? Like, and but you don't want to plant the seeds either. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, because I think if you plant them, you plant wrong ones, and then you parry off it, and then it's very transparent what you're doing. So it's like utilize what presents, isn't it?
Yeah. It's kind of like maybe it's the Chris Voss stuff, right? There is something of that of confidence when you can say you probably think that us car salespeople are all the same, that we're just trying to rip you off, right? And that's not putting it in their head, but you know what I mean. But then you're getting that rapport with them. So I don't know. What do you think?
I think it's tricky to make those kinds of invitations up front because it invites a judgment. You know, it says, I've judged you as one of these people who judges salespeople, and no one likes that. So I think to avoid judgment is kind of the golden rule.
I know, but at some point or other, you have to use labels, even if it's an NVC. I don't know. I don't like needs. In sales, I don't even like needs, because I realized a long time ago people will pay a lot more for what they want than versus what they need.
Yeah, that's true.
I need this, but I want this. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well then, you know, I mean, the status, although, you know, because, I mean, I don't know, at this day and age, you know, cars are pretty good, pretty reliable, they're all pretty safe. So it's the colour and the prestige and the status.
Yeah, I don't even know. I couldn't even sell cars when I went back in. I used to be great at it. I went back and I couldn't deal with it. The heat was bad. I was thinking about my kid. It was dead. The dealership was dead. It was terrible, dude.
Yeah, times have changed, I think. Yeah, again, like, you know, a lot of people are much more sophisticated now. So, you know, the old embedded commands and, I mean, I used to see some appalling things going on in a showroom. See people being bullied into signing contracts.
Yeah, I don't think that even happens anymore. But
wouldn't go away with that today.
Oh, you see, like these people it was just so terrible. Like they, you know, like if you're walking by somewhere, like in a mall or something, and there's someone with those kiosks trying to get your attention to sell you something when you're walking by, and they would do these old things like they'd ask you a question as they're nodding with the whole body, like they're moving their head up and down, like over exaggerating and bending almost at the time. Like, you know, it's like so terrible and telegraphed. It's like,
yeah,
you know, I don't even like it when people use some basic NLP and they'll say that, you know, they make it so obvious, right? Because I'm sure you, like me, want to get a good deal. It's just like,
yeah. It
kind of turns me off now when I hear that stuff.
Yeah, well,
I don't know. I'm thinking more and more. It's less about what you say and it's more of your intention. You know, if your intention is to fucking manipulate someone and use language to trick them, then people are unconsciously going to pick that up.
Yeah.
Some people might miss it, right? But if your intention is to help people and influence them for their own good, I think that comes across too.
Yeah, I mean, there's something I want to get onto with perhaps the next call is Virginia Satir. She talks about going through the process of change, which is, again, kind of relates to Charlie Manson. There's 5 kind of distinct steps in helping people go through change, and there is always a danger of the unknown with the change. So there's always a part that's questioning, you know, what if it doesn't work out? What if? It's the long grass again.
Well, I guess that's our survival mechanism, right? To look for the worst so we can survive, right? What's the worst that can happen? Am I going to get eaten? Am I going to get killed? You know, is this going to be safe?
Yeah. And this, again, comes back to the rubbernecking, which is kind of why I really brought it up, because it also has a knock-on effect. And like I was trying to say, that it seems to me that the really successful entrepreneurs lock down and focus on their side of the road, stay in your lane. It's kind of like similar sort of thing. I don't like that because I think you can change lanes if you want. You know, you get better skill, of course you're going to change lanes. But, you know, why is the other side of the road affecting me? It's over there. It's going in a completely different direction. Why is it going to influence the speed I'm going in my lane? And what happens is that it seems that people have this ability to switch off this self-harm avoidance. Again, it's like making a leap, isn't it? It's, you know, like you were saying earlier about going on the dates, rather than second guessing what she's thinking, just set yourself up as the prize and don't worry about it. Stay on your side of the lane. Don't rubberneck what someone else is thinking. Don't try and work out what everyone else in the bar is looking at right now, because that doesn't concern you. And the fascinating thing to me with these rubbernecking is that it has such a huge knock-on effect. It literally sends shockwaves throughout the kind of problem space, if you want to call it that. So, you know, we've all seen it on the road. People on this side of the road slow down to look at the accident on the other side. And as people slow down on my side, the congestion builds up. People are already now noticing that a lot of people on my side are slowing down. That causes more people to slow down, and then more people to ask why we're slowing down. and it has a knock-on effect beyond its initial starting condition. You actually see a compression wave, and you can see it when you're in traffic, and you can see a mile or 2 miles of traffic pulling up on a motorway. You'll see the brake lights come on, and the reverse propagation of those brake lights goes at something can go like 100, 200 miles an hour, because people just touch the brake light and you're immediately behind the car in front, and you react and hit your brake light immediately. So the propagation of the brake lights reverses down that column of traffic faster than people slow down. So the information is sent back among that queue faster. You know, so you get a message that all these brake lights are coming on, that you can see a mile down the road before you even get there. So you already have information that there's something to see for when you get there. And so I was reading this paper about rubbernecking, and one of the things that it's a really difficult problem to solve, because the number of people that rubberneck is directly proportional to the number of people who are already rubbernecking. So it kind of creates a feedback loop. And the lost time due to rubbernecking is just crazy. So if there's a lesson in this, it's don't rubberneck. You know, all this Charlie Manson stuff, it's all good and interesting, but it's an outlier. And like you were saying a couple of calls ago, it's all well and good to practice that rare response to the psycho that's going to come into your dealership, that 1 in a million person that you're going to have to say something to get them on side, when it's actually more economical to just not be able to handle that person at all, qualify them out, and focus on the people who you can work with. Mm-hmm. So again, you know, why rubberneck the outliers? You're going to deal with them once in your life. Why spend that amount of time on it? It's like the accident. We all want to know how it was caused. Could we have avoided it? Are our skills up to date? You know, what's the damage? What's the outcome? Is anybody seriously hurt? And it's the same thing that we've talked about in this audio as well with the Kardashians. You know, how did they get their success? Was it the sex tape? Is it the marketing engine? Is it keeping up with the Kardashians? Is it the television programs? What is it? Is the mobile phone app? What is it? Is it the social media? What is it? We're rubbernecking again. And like I said a few moments ago, the rubbernecking creates these kind of compression waves. All of a sudden, I've got your attention, and you've slowed down in traffic. And now I can talk to you. And now that I'm talking to you, I can start to persuade you. You know, it's a Dave Trott model of grabbing people's attention with impact, and then having a communication, and then entering the persuasion phase. It's just another funnel. Even knowing the information, it's not going to help you, because sometimes, you know, other lunatics are on the road, and there's just no accounting for drunk drivers, and there's just no accounting for potholes or mechanical failures. We all know that these things happen, but knowing it doesn't help us. Yeah.
No, it makes sense. Okay, dude, I think I'm done.
Yeah, that's quite a lot to go into, and there's a lot more to come. But yeah, it's the shock waves are the really interesting compression waves, because I kind of thought about that in terms of traffic flow as well. You get like a frontal wave where people slow down, and when the danger or the blockage is past, then you get an expansion wave where people speed up again. I thought, wow, that's just like stress in the body. You know, when you find a problem and you hit a wall and you compress, and then when you get over it, you expand. And I thought, wow, same kind of model.
Yeah, I mean, Apollo School, it's just a cluster to pick up the kids, and people are so, I get so mad, dude. I get so frustrated because people are so fucking stupid. And I literally want to, I don't understand how people operate like this. Like, they're just in their own world, and so, what's the word? Like, they're not even aware of things around them, and they're not even aware, like, they're just like stopping. I'm like, you're blocking the way. All these people need to go by you to pick up their kids, and you're just do on your phone. Like, either move up or, you know, pull over. What are you doing? Like, they're just in their own little world and oblivious to fucking what's going on.
Yeah.
And it really bothers me. Like, I have a hard time with it, dude.
Yeah, I haven't solved that one. I don't like inconsiderate people. I used to get supermarket rage, same kind of thing.
Yeah, all these in the way people. Do you know what I mean? That's what I call them.
Yeah, they are. It's not like, fuck. It's just not, you know, I don't know what they're doing there. They're not even shopping. It's like, what are you doing? You're just pushing a trolley around, getting in everyone's way, just because you want to go around the other way.
Yeah, I do things like Laura always like does like a beeline when she's with me at the market, right? Because like sometimes they'll just be standing there and I'll take the cart and I'll be waiting for like 5, 6, 7, 10 seconds. They're blocking the way. I can't get around them, and then I just pick the back of the carriage up and I just slam it into the ground, bang, 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 and then they fucking move, or I'll fucking.
Ah, you're doing a bit of a violence please or reprise or fight test, are you?
Oh yeah. What about the? Yeah, oh yeah, and then and I'll just go move. That's right. Or like another time, this is funny. Speaking of supermarkets, I'll never forget. There's someone that's like maybe 15, 20 feet away, and I'm in between him and the person who he wants to talk to, and he just starts yelling at the top of his lungs, like, and I'm like, what the fuck, like, dude, right? So now Laura is on the other side of the guy, on like. I mean, I'm a foot away from the guy, and Laura is maybe a foot and a half away from the guy on the other side. So instead of just talking to Laura at my normal voice because she could hear me, I'm screaming at her like he was screaming at the girl, the kid, right at her, and she's just busts out laughing and just almost runs away, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't give a fuck.
I like that. All right, dude.
Oh, dude.
Well, thanks for the time,
All right,
man. That's good to get that out. All right.
All right, man. Have a good one, man.